Hello everyone and welcome to Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. This day weather podcast being brought to you by Chugwater Chili, the gourmet spice of Western life. Make plans to come to Chugwater on June 19th for the 35th annual Chugwater Chili Cook-Off. Enjoy live music vendors, ranch rodeo, and of course, chili tasting. Tickets are $15. Kids 12 and under are free. Get your tickets online at chugwaterchiliCookoff.org. Well, we're going to continue to talk about the heat. Now, we do have some severe weather threat today in some areas. We'll show you that. Parts of the high plains, especially parts of far eastern Wyoming, western South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, western Nebraska, and extreme northeast Colorado, have a risk of severe weather today. Elsewhere, though, hot, dry weather will continue, and rain chances are going to mainly stay east of the Continental Divide and across the northern areas, while the western slope is going to continue to be very dry. For you western slope areas, for western Colorado, western Wyoming, Utah, eastern Idaho, New Mexico, Arizona, you're going to have to wait until after June 20th when we start to see the early parts of the monsoon beginning to develop. But it's 2 weeks for the western slope areas that really have any good chances of rain. And we'll show you the setup today for severe weather. This is today's upper level pattern zoomed in on the United States. Here we have high pressure over New Mexico. You see this little low, this little disturbance, this little kink in the flow. Well, what'll happen with this is this little guy up here, this is going to move northeast like this. Now it's a small little upper level wave and it actually weakens quite a bit as it moves northeastward. But it's going to be arriving in this area here during the late afternoon hours, during the warmest part of the day. That's going to set the stage for severe weather. This is all that's left of it by this afternoon. It weakens considerably, but this time of year, it's just enough of what we would call a trigger to set off some showers and thunderstorms. And it really is going to be a factor of where the better moisture is going to be. And when you get into this time of year, when you get into the thunderstorm season, looking at lower level humidities and moisture is really critical to understanding where the best chance of rain and thunderstorm activity is going to fall. And a lot of times it's that interface between the really dry air and the really moist air that severe weather tends to like to form. And what I'm showing you here is what is called a dew point map. Dew point is a way to measure humidity in the air the most accurately. Relative humidity is not a really good way to measure the real amount of water in the air, so we use the dew point. The dew point is the temperature to which it would have to cool for fog or 100% humidity to form. So the lower the dew point, like this 2 right here in Carbon County, Wyoming, indicates the air being very dry. When you have a dew point like a 62 here in Nebraska, that means the air is very moist. And what I'm showing you is the forecast of dew points, or the amount of water that's in the air available to make it rain. That's showing up on this chart here, and I want to just highlight the contrast between this blue here and the purple. The blue and the yellow areas here would represent very moist air or higher dew points. Very dry air. Look how low these dew points are in the western slope areas into north central and central Wyoming, back into Utah, Nevada, down into the desert states. This is an extremely dry air mass. So right here between the very dry air and the moist air and that interface between the two, and then we have that little upper level low that's going to come up and over that interface, and that's where you're going to get the severe weather. Anywhere you see this purple and these reddish colors, the air is so dry that if you do get a thunderstorm, you'll get virga, you'll get the rain that falls and evaporates before it reaches the ground. You get strong wind gusts. In the more moist air is where you get the rain producing thunderstorms. And so this is the boundary area right here where the severe weather is going to be forming today. And the Storm Prediction Center shows that. This is another way to represent the moisture, maybe a little bit easier for you to see. This is what's called precipitable water, which means the total amount of water that's in the air to make it rain. And if it did rain, these are the potential amounts that you would get. But what you want to see here is the contrast between the blue and the brown and the really, really dry air that's in this area right here. So these dry areas, you're going to have to introduce some type of weather change event to get the air more moist to make it rain. So out on the plains and the front range areas is where you're going to see the thunderstorms. And this is the Storm Prediction Center for the risk of severe weather today. And this little wedge of yellow right here is the area with the highest risk of severe weather. So if you live in that yellow area or the darker green shaded area, that's where the risk of severe weather is going to be today. And the highest risk is unfortunately going to be hail. This is the hail probability. We're looking at the highest probability of large hail in northeastern Montana, but also in this yellow area here. What's bad about these situations that we're in today is you tend to get thunderstorms that could get severe with hail, strong winds, and even isolated tornadoes, but they don't tend to be really good rain producers because of all of the dry air that's here. Although there will be some heavier rain producing thunderstorms in those yellow areas, but only for a few areas. Now tomorrow, without that upper level disturbance, we have generally garden variety thunderstorms, mainly along and east of that line out here and dry elsewhere. However, by Thursday, another little wave comes in. Thursday could be another enhancement of severe thunderstorm activity across the Dakotas, eastern Montana, parts of Nebraska, northeastern Wyoming. That's where all the action's going to be. Elsewhere, there just won't be much going on. This is the rain forecast through Sunday afternoon and into Monday, so about a week from now. And you can see where that dry air is dominating right here. And you're going to get thunderstorms along the northern edge and out on the plain states where more of that higher humidity air is coming up from the south. But along and west of the divide, it continues to be a drought situation. Now, long term, this is the high pressure ridge that is going to be in place for the weekend, so there's no change. The heat will continue as the high pressure remains in place, and this low here just gets stuck and is not going to be able to move in. It's just going to continue to bring southwest flow into the Intermountain West and the Rocky Mountain West. This is all the way out to next Wednesday. The high pressure builds, and boy, does it get hot across the desert southwest next week. The hottest temperatures of the year will be forming, and some of that heat will continue to come into the Rockies and the plains. This is what the 10-day average temperatures look like relative to average. So you can see almost all of the lower 48 in Canada going into much warmer than normal conditions. And there's that arch. We were showing you this arch late last week. This arch of heat getting pumped out of the desert states is going to continue here for another 10 days. Now, there's a little bit of hope. We talked about at the beginning of this podcast, after June 20th is when the western slope areas would have to wait for some of that moisture to come in. And we're continuing to see it. When you build up heat in the deserts, you help draw moisture out of the subtropics into Arizona, into New Mexico, and some of that does work its way north into areas west of the divide here. And so there's going to be a better chance after June 20th for this area here to get into some better chances of rain producing showers and thunderstorms, but probably not until after June 20th, while we do also see an increase in thunderstorm activity after June 20th or near that 20th time frame along and east of the divide as well. So it's going to be tough sledding here for the next couple of weeks when it comes to rain, even in these active thunderstorm areas up here, as that's really the only area that's got any chance of decent measurable chances of precipitation over the next week or so. Don't forget to use Chugwater Chili Chugwater Don at checkout at chugwaterchili.com to get 20% off. And don't forget the Chugwater Chili Cook-Off coming up June 19th. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday.